Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the quarterly data quality process webinar. My name is Alexander Fuller, HMIS analyst here at Health Chicago. Just a couple of housekeeping things. Everyone on the call today is on mute. If you do have any questions, please utilize the question section within GoToWebinar. I'll try to answer things in real time, but if not, we can definitely try to save time at the end to review those. This webinar and the slides will be available after on our help desk within the two articles that are currently available for data quality. And on our agenda today, we're just going to go over the context of why we're going through the data quality process. We're also going to go over missing values and data issues, child-only entries, utilization, timeliness, who participates, report details, overview, submission process, data quality timeline, accessing and reviewing the report, troubleshooting, both of those will kind of be a live demo, and then resources and support. Okay, so the Chicago Continuum of Care, the COC, utilizes data-informed approaches to coordinate services and resources in an effort to end homelessness. The Homeless Management System, HMIS, data quality is an important factor to measure efforts to end or prevent homelessness. And the COC relies on the work of all providers of all funding types to enter accurate, complete, and timely data to ensure we have the information we need to make informed decisions as a community. Due to the importance on data and in order to maintain data quality, providers in HMIS are expected to participate in a quarterly data quality process that addresses data in the following 4 areas. So the first one would be missing values and data issues, child-only entries, bed utilization, and timeliness. So those will be the only 4 areas that we will be looking at through the data quality process. So the first thing that we're going to look at is the missing values and the data issues. So on the screenshot that you see here on the data element column, these are the elements that we will be looking at. So I'll kind of just go through them really quickly. Name, social security number, date of birth, race, ethnicity, gender, veteran status, prior living situation, length of stay in previous place, relationship to head of household, client location, domestic violence, disability at entry and exit, income at entry and exit, non-cash benefits at entry and exit, insurance at entry and exit, and destination at exit. So no more than 5% of clients enrolled in the project can miss any data element, including data not collected answers. For name, social security number, and date of birth, those data elements do include data or client doesn't know and client prefers not to answer as errors. So for those 3 data elements only, those particular values will count as errors as well. One thing to note in the screenshot as well is the required for column, which is on the right-hand side of the screenshot here. You always want to refer to this column just to see what set of clients are being captured for that particular data element. As you can see, name, social security number, date of birth is required for all clients. So all clients that show up on the details tab of the report would require these data elements to be completed. But for other things such as prior living situation, it's only looking at adult head of households, and veteran status is only looking at adult clients. Okay, so one thing which is unique to this particular iteration of the data quality process is that both primary race and ethnicity fields were retired and replaced during the 2024 data standard changes. So for this iteration of data quality, we will be looking at Q3 data, which is data that would have had the race and ethnicity fields and still was a part of the 2022 data standards. So within the report, the race and ethnicity fields are still populated and are still pulled into the report. But those particular fields, if you do have errors in those will not be able to be corrected during this iteration of data quality since those fields are no longer on the assessments in HMIS. So I'll talk a little bit more about how you can look at this as we go through the report. But these two fields are on the report, but they are no longer in HMIS, so you wouldn't be able to make any corrections for any race and ethnicity errors. Take a moment for any questions. Okay, so we do have a question. Is this going to be recorded? So yes, this will be recorded and will be available on our help desk. So ideally, it will be available tomorrow. It just depends on when it's going to be available to be uploaded. Okay, so we do have a question. So if there is a null value here, will it count against our DQ? At this time, it will count against your DQ, but if you have concerns, you can always reach out to us. But at this time, those values being null or having errors will still count a part of DQ. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at is child-only entries. So for child-only entries, there must be 0 child-only entries in your project. A child-only entry is flagged when the client is under the age of 18, is enrolled without being connected to a parent or guardian. The reason this happens is usually for 2 reasons. The child was entered separately from their parent or guardian, or the child's date of birth is missing. So for the first piece here, the child was entered separately from their parent or guardian. So what usually happens here is that if you have a household already enrolled in your project and a child is born and you want to add that client to that child to the enrollment, if you don't do it within the current enrollment and you create a brand new enrollment for that child, they won't be connected. A good way to look at that is in the details tab at the group ID number, and that'll be able to tell you if those clients are connected that way. For missing date of birth, this would be flagged in 2 spots. So in the previous slides, we talked about the elements that we were looking at. Date of birth was one of them. So if a client is missing the date of birth, they'll be flagged in that section as well as in the child-only entry section. So we do have one question. If they are unable to be corrected, you just let us know that today. How is it fair to still count these errors against agencies? So we can follow back up with that, but at this time, that's just kind of the way that we've kind of decided at the moment. Okay, so for child-only entries, if your project does serve unaccompanied youth under the age of 18, we do ask that you send in a ticket to the help desk just to let us know, make us aware of that so we can make note. Okay. Correction period means that agencies have the ability to correct errors. When that is not available, it's not our fault. Okay. If you can, would you be able to just submit a ticket to the help desk and then we can follow up with it offline? Okay, so the next piece would be utilization. So bed, room, and unit utilization must be within the following ranges. So for emergency shelters, it must be between 80% and 105%. For transitional housing, it must also be between 80% and 105%. For permanent supportive housing, it must be between 85% or greater. So there's no cap to the inventory that you can have for permanent supportive housing. Safe haven is between 85% and 105%. So for this iteration of data quality, the utilization is looking at how many clients were enrolled in your project on August 17th for 2023. For permanent supportive housing projects, the housing movement date is a requirement for your client to be captured in the utilization section. And that's compared to how many beds and units are indicated in your bed and unit inventory sheet. So within the report, that information is also going to be available to you of what your inventory looks like for your project during this particular reporting range. So if that doesn't look correct, just reach out to us and we can review that as well. If a project is underutilized in their bid list, but is in compliance for their unit utilization, then the project will still be in compliance. The opposite situation would also count as being in compliance, so long as either bid or unit utilization is in compliance. The project as a whole will still be considered compliant. So this is just a screenshot of what the utilization table looks like within the report. As you can see, it's broken up into two sections. You have your bed utilization and your room utilization. A good way to look at this is that bed utilization is looking at a count one-to-one of your clients on that particular point in time date, where room unit utilization is looking at the household count, which would be the group ID count. Okay. So we do have another question. Consider the agencies when making punitive decisions. So if we do make any changes to how we will look at the scoring of data quality, we will send out a mass communication to all ATAs, uh, you know, saying what that change is. We won't just send it to the person asking the question. Okay, so we have another question. If we have utilization error and reach out for assistance getting the information corrected, will we get a response from the help desk before the data quality due date? Yeah, so we'll get to a little bit of a little bit about that at the end. But we do encourage you to reach out as soon as possible with your data quality issues. The later that you reach out as data quality process goes on, the harder it is for us to set time to reach or to meet with your agency or to work through those issues. So the sooner you reach out to us, the easier it is for us to schedule time to meet with you. Okay, so the last piece of it would be timeliness. Timeliness is tracked through an automated report created by All Chicago. This timeliness report will track timeliness at entry, exit, house and moving date, and shelter services. Timeliness measures the time it takes to create an element in HMIS. This measure applies even if the entry date is backdated. So for instance, if a client originally came into a project August 1st of 2023, but they were not entered into that project in HMIS until August 15th of 2023, the information will be considered out of compliance as it took 14 days to indicate that the client was enrolled in the project. Timeliness data cannot be corrected. So who participates? Ideally, all projects, regardless of funding, are required to participate in the quarterly data quality process, so long as a project is active and has at least one client enrolled. So we do have an article on our help desk of all of the active projects that we currently have. This list is not a 100% list directed towards data quality, but this is an idea of all of the active projects. So if there are projects that don't enroll clients that are on the list, that doesn't mean that you have to submit for it. So if the project is on the list, but you don't have clients enrolled into it, disregard it. If it's a project that's on this list that is no longer active or no longer receiving funding or being operated by your project, just let us know, and we can begin the process of deactivating that project. And then if a project doesn't enter data into HMIS, they are not required to participate in the data quality process. So if you have a DV project that doesn't enter data, you won't have to run a report for that project. So for the report details, reports must be generated for one project at a time. This is really important that the reports are done that way. If you include more than one project as you generate it, it could potentially cause errors with how we receive it and potentially won't get counted towards the data quality process. The report will be looking at the period from July 1st of 2023 to September 22nd of 2023. The end date of September 22nd is due to the system being unavailable from September 29th to October 3rd of 2023. This was due to the data standard changes and the unavailability of providers being able to enter data. The point in time date is set for August 18th, 2023 within the report because it's including the PID date plus 1 day. But this is going to be looking at how many clients were enrolled on the night of August 17th against how many units, rooms the project is reported to have. Just take a moment for any questions. Okay, so this quarter's overview. So the data quality process will go from November 6th to November 17th. There will be only one round for submissions. Providers will not need to send in data quality reports until they are ready for final submission or final review. Business objects reports, which can only be downloaded by users with access to business objects, will cover the following: missing values, child-only entries, and bid utilization. Changes made in HMIS will not generate in business objects until the following day. The SQL report will be sent to agencies and will cover the following, which is timeliness, And the timeliness reports will, again, be emailed to the ATAs. Okay, so for the submission process, reports are to be submitted by November 17th, which is the data quality deadline. Files must be renamed using the Chicago DQ underscore 4 dashes underscore year month date template. So for submission, you are going to have to adjust the project ID number, which is the dashes, and the date, which is the year month date template there, and the file name before submission. So to do that, once you download your file within your file explorer, you're going to right click the file and you'll have a drop down which would allow you to rename it. And from there, you'll be able to fill in the missing sections. The project ID number in the file must be 4 digits. So it's important if you have a project where the ID number is only 3 digits that you put that 0 in front of your ID number. Just to make sure that the file is captured within, is captured during submission correctly. So we have a question, where will we find our project ID? So when you go to enroll a client, the drop downs that you have will give you the project and the ID number of the projects you have available. But if there's projects that you don't see that you know your agency have, then you could just reach out to your ATA or someone else at your agency, or you can reach out to us and we can let you know the ID number of a particular project. So when you get ready to send the reports in, it's important that you send it to the correct email address, which is dataquality@allchicago.org. This is really important. Sending your data quality submissions to the help desk or any member on the HMIS team will not result in your submissions being accepted. You would have to use the data quality at allchicago email address to submit them. The subject line for that email must be data quality report submission attachments. When submitting your final reports, if you have multiple projects you're submitting, you can bundle them together in one email. So when running the reports, you do have to individually run them per project, but when attaching them to the email, you can attach all of those files to one email for submission. So just to kind of quickly go over the timeline, October 26th and November 1st, we sent out communications to ATAs letting them know about the data quality process starting as well as the webinar. Today is the 6th, which is the beginning of the data quality process. So from November 6th to November 16th is the available time to make any corrections to your project data or your client data. November 17th would be the submission date. So anything that has to be corrected needs to be done by November 16th. So you have 1 day to run the report to include that information. Any corrections made on November 17th will not be available in the reports that you run that day. And then the final results will be posted after the data quality process, ideally probably the following week. But I don't have an exact date for when that will happen. We'll send out an email to ATAs just following up on when that's available. Okay, so accessing the report and review as well as troubleshooting, we're going to kind of go through in the live demo. Okay, so hopefully everyone can still see my screen. Okay, so within HMIS, there's a couple of ways to get to business objects, which is how you're going to be able to run your data quality reports. The easiest way is you should have connect to business objects in the top right hand corner of your screen. On the left hand side, you have reports. If you click the arrow, you will be able to see business objects. Here you can click on it and it would allow you to go straight to business objects. Or if you click on reports, it's available in the custom reports section. So no matter which way you click, it's gonna take you to the same place. So once you're in business objects, the first thing you're gonna do is click on folders, public folders. Next, you're gonna click on Chicago Live folder, Chicago COC reports, data quality. And once you're in the data quality folder, you'll be able to see the Chicago DQ underscore dash dash year month date report. And once you find it, you can just click on it to begin running it. So to run this report, all you would need to do is to select the project that you're going to be running it for. For my example, I'm just going to choose the All Chicago Emergency Shelter Project. But for EDA provider, this should be left alone. It should always say default provider. If you run your report and things don't look quite right or data's not pulling in at all, it could be due to EDA provider being filled out. So this always should just be left alone. The start date, the end date, and the pit date are all set, so those don't need to be adjusted. And the effective date does not need to be adjusted either. So the only thing that you will need to change when running this report is the provider that you're going to be running it for. Once you have that selected, you'll just click run. So as we wait for this report to run, I'm going to go over how to get this report scheduled. Okay, so we do have a couple of questions. Can we run multiple project reports at once? So you can't include multiple projects within the prompt to run the report. So you can't have multiple projects included in one report, but you can schedule multiple projects, data reports for multiple projects, which is kind of what I'm going to go over now. But you can't include them in one report itself, no. Who can we reach out to if business objects is not available? So if you don't have access to business objects, please just submit a ticket to helpdesk@allchicago.org, and we can work with you to get that situated. So to schedule the report, once you have the data quality report located, you're going to right click on the report, which should give you this list of options here. So we're going to click on schedule, which will allow us to set the schedule for when we want the reports to come. At the top here, you have the title. I recommend just leaving this as is and making no changes to it. For the destination, you're going to want to click and add BI inbox and click confirm. this is going to be where the report is going to be delivered to once it runs. So the next part is the recurrence. So this is the frequency in which you want to receive the report. By default, it's set to now, which will just give you an instant run, a one-time instant run. If you select once, it'll also give you a one-time run, but you can select when that happens. For reoccurring, you can select hourly, daily, weekly, business hours. So if I wanted this to run every day, I can select daily. I can select if I want to skip particular days, so every other day, every 2 days. And then I can select when I want this to start and when I want this to end. So if I want this to cover the whole data quality process, I can select the end date to be the 17th. So every day I'll receive one report of the project that I'm going to be running this for. If we don't want to include the weekends because we're not going to be looking at the reports then, we can click business hours and select Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. We'll select the hours in which we want the report to generate. So we'll just say from 9 a.m. to 4. And the way that we'll set this to run every 24 hours. We can't select 24 hours, but we could run it for 23 hours and 59 minutes. And then we can also select the date that we want it to end. By default, it's going to change it to a year in the future, a couple years in the future. So we'll just change it back to 2023. We'll select the 17th. So now the report's going to run for us every single day, Monday through Friday for the next 2 weeks. We'll receive this report. I recommend to allow retries just because depending on what time you set this report to run. So one quick thing, if you're running this report for today and you want to also receive a report today, since it's set for 11:31 and currently that time has passed, you will not receive a report today, and by default it'll start tomorrow. So if you want this to start today, you will set this for a time that hasn't occurred or hasn't happened yet. So you'll be able to receive that report today. But I do recommend allowing multiple retries just in case for whatever reason that report fails. Below, there's really nothing else to adjust, but you do want to make sure at the top here you click on report features, and this would change the format and the prompts for you. So the first part here is format. You're going to want to click Microsoft Excel reports. So the difference between data and reports is that Microsoft Excel data will only generate the raw values of what's being pulled out the report, where the Excel reports would actually give you the structure of how we set the report up. So you're going to want to make sure that you click on reports. And for the prompts here, we're going to click edit prompt values, and it's going to show just how it would if we're running a report where it brings up the prompts here. Again, we're going to select our emergency shelter project, and we will make any adjustments if we needed to, but since everything is set here, there's nothing else to adjust, and we'll click apply. And once everything is set, then all we'll have to do is click schedule. And from there, that report will be available for you when you log into Business Objects on your home page here under recent runs, and then also you can click on it up here, or BI inbox. Okay. Before we go through the actual data quality report, are there any questions? Okay. So in the data quality report, the first tab that you have here is the summary tab. At the very top of it is going to give you the date ranges, so you can confirm that the report is running for the accurate time range. Below it is going to be your project. If you have more than one project here, that's going to cause issues with submission. So you're going to want to run them individually. So it should only be one project identified here. The first table that you'll see are the data elements table that we'll be looking at. Again, the elements are on the far left-hand side. The next column is going to indicate what clients are going to be pulled into this, is going to be looked at for this particular data element. The next column is the applicable entries, which is going to give you the cumulative count of the clients that fell within those requirements. And then the next column is going to be the count of errors. So of the clients that will fall into this range, these are the clients that had the error, and then the percent of that error. Within here, you can see that for some of these, so disability at exit, they're dashed out. So this would indicate that no client fell within that metric. So that's going to be by default checked out. The next table would be the child only entries table. Again, this table is looking at clients with null date of births, enrollments of under the age of 18 and not tied to a parent or a guardian or someone over the age of 18 being the head of household. Those clients will show up here. The details of this will be in tab C, which is the child only entries tab. And below child only entries would be the utilization tab here. So for bed utilization, we do have the enrollment numbers. Again, this is looking at how many clients are enrolled in the project on the date of the point in time count, which is August 17th for this iteration of data quality. For permanent supportive housing, it's also taking into account the clients with the housing movement date within range of the enrollment. So if you have a client with a housing movement date, but that date is prior to the enrollment date or after the exit date, that client wouldn't be counted in this metric for permanent supportive housing projects. For the room utilization, again, the number of households enrolled is going to be looking at the overall household count, which in the details tab would be the group ID number. So if any number, if a household is missing here, or if you have more households than expected, the best way to look at that is within tab B and look at the group ID number. So if you have two clients that are supposed to be in the same household, but they have different group ID numbers, then you have to combine them into one. Okay, so this is a preview of what the client details tab looks like. The first column you have here is the group ID and the client ID number. Again, group ID number is a great way to identify clients that should be grouped together or in a household together. Again, if clients are supposed to be together and they have different ID numbers, or a client has a missing group ID number, then that would be an indication that data would need to be adjusted in the system to bring them together. The next column would be the entry date, followed by the exit date. One thing about the exit date is that if you have a client that shows on this report and their exit happened after September 22nd, that exit will show on the report, but since it didn't happen within the reporting range, it will not be the the additional questions that look at exit answers, they wouldn't fall into that category since their exit didn't happen within the reporting range that we're looking at. Okay, so next will be first name, last name, name data quality, and then name DQ. So first name, last name, and name data quality are just displaying the values that are in the field. The name DQ column is actually giving you an indication on what's missing. Similarly to the social security number data quality, where the column here is just displaying whatever the value is in HMIS, where the social security number data quality column next to it is giving you an indication on what's wrong with the combination between social security number and social security number data quality. So although the social security number doesn't appear in the report, just like first name, last name, and the name data quality, that is also being looked at in conjunction with the name data quality field to make up the social security number DQ. Next would be date of birth, age, and then date of birth data quality, and then date of birth DQ. Again, this kind of operates the same way. So the date of birth field are just the values that are in HMIS, as well as the date of birth data quality, where the date of birth data quality is going to tell you what's missing based on the combination of these two columns. Okay, again, race and ethnicity has been retired. They are going to show up here and they're not going to be available to be corrected in HMIS. One thing to note is that with the data standard change, ethnicity, well, race and ethnicity both went away, but ideally ethnicity kind of got moved into race. So if you have null values in ethnicity, it's not really that big of a concern since, or going forward for those clients, it's not going to be something that you'll need to correct because only values of Hispanic would have got migrated over to the new race and ethnicity field. If you have non-HUD errors or null values in primary race, that although this field itself doesn't exist in the assessment anymore, if it's a null value for primary race, more than likely you'll still have that null value in the new race and ethnicity field. So you'll still want to correct it even though it's not going to populate in the report as it has been corrected. But you'll still want to make those corrections for the next iteration of DQ if that client is still enrolled. Gender. So for gender, you can see that the values for gender has updated to what the 2024 standards are. Ideally, there's no changes to gender. So if there are errors, you can go in and make those corrections in HMIS. So this particular field didn't change, so you can make those corrections now. For veteran status, this particular data element is actually located within the client profile and not the enrollment assessment. So if you do have a null value here, that's going to be where you want to look is the actual client profile itself. So prior living situation and length of stay. These are both available within the enrollment assessment at entry. Null values will indicate that it's missing in the assessment. If you have non-HUD errors, what that means is that there's an existing value for that client that needs to be changed or updated to the current value that's being accepted by HUD. So it could be just that that value was valid at the time of the client being enrolled, but since then, HUD has changed the language around length of stay. Okay, I'm just gonna take a moment for any questions. Okay, so we have one question. For unit utilization, is it looking at the number of households with a program start date, or is it looking at the number of people with a move-in date? Okay, so for utilization, it depends on the project. So for permanent supportive housing, a move-in date is required to be captured in utilization. For other project types, it's going to be looking at the clients enrolled. Where the bed utilization is looking at the actual clients itself, so the one-to-one clients enrolled in the project, where the room unit utilization is actually looking at the household count. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but if you have more, just feel free to ask away. And then we have another question. What time ranges need to be submitted by 11/17? So the time ranges for the report is going to be from July 1st of 2023 to September 22nd of 2023. If you're running the report, these date ranges will be already populated in the report for you. You are going to see it say September 23rd, which is including that +1 date. But once you run the report, it is going to default back to September 22nd. Okay, so just to kind of go forward, relationship to head of household. Again, this is found in the entry assessment, usually at the very top. No values, you would need to select the household relationship for that particular client if it's more than one client. In a project, two clients can't be both head of households. So only one head of household per household enrollment. Next will be client location. This is also within the entry assessment, usually again at the very top. For our COC, the code would always be Illinois 510. So if it's a no value here, you'll just need to go in and just select Illinois 510 for that. Okay, domestic violence and DV experience. So if you have a no value for domestic violence, it does need to be filled out. One thing to keep in mind is that if you do select yes for domestic violence question in an assessment, the DV experience questions will need to be completed as well. So if you have a no value here after selecting yes, that will show up on the report as well. Okay, so for the sub-assessment columns here, they pretty much all operate the exact way. So what's happening with how these are being looked at is that the prior question for all of these sub-assessments, the prior yes or no question, if that does not match what's being selected in the sub-assessment, those will generate as a mismatch in the respective columns. If it does match and everything is fine with that, but the additional disability income or non-cash benefits values aren't selected as no for the hub verification, those will be flagged here. So if it says hub verification, that's where you would need to make the correction, and you can kind of tell that usually by the red check next to the hub verifications, or the green check or the red will let you know that it's not completed. Again, if the clients are not exited in your project, the exit columns will not need to be completed, so they'll have a dash in it. And for exit at destination, again, if the client isn't exited, they wouldn't need anything here. And the same logic remains. So if you choose no exit interview completed, that will be an error. If you choose any of the other options, that'll be fine. Or no values will still be an error as well. Just one quick thing to kind of go back to is this race and ethnicity piece. Again, I just want to just make clear that these fields are no longer available in the assessments, but again, we do encourage everyone to complete these if you have no values here for primary race. Again, if you have no values for ethnicity, but it should be a value here of Hispanic, please go into the new race and ethnicity field and complete that there. Okay, so we have one question. Is the DV question required for people under age of 18? So within the report, we have it set for domestic violence for only looking at the adult, so it would only be looking at clients over the age of 18. Okay, so the next tab here would be child only entries. Again, if you have any missing date of births, they'll show up here. One good way to kind of see what age the client is at now is looking at the last column here, which will give you the age. The next tab here will be the inventory tab. So this would just let you know what your inventory is. This is also displayed on the summary and the utilization piece. So if you have any questions about this, please feel free to reach out to us and we can talk through your concerns about it. And then the last tab would just be the additional information is just give you the values of when the report's being ran, as well as the overall kind of client count here. So let me just kind of jump back to our webinar here. Okay, so really quickly about the continued troubleshooting is that there is a key within the report that kind of goes over what a lot of the alerters mean in the details section. So I recommend just reading through these and they give you the definition of what a lot of these abbreviations mean. and as well as where to locate these fields within the assessments. The name, social security number, and the veteran status are the only questions that will be found outside the enrollment assessment. So again, those questions can be found within the client profile, but everything else will be able to be corrected within your project enrollment. So for resources and user support, we do have 2 articles on the data quality process. One is just going over the overview, and the second is kind of going over how to run and interpret the data quality report. Both reports does include, will include the recording of this webinar, and then also details on how to submit the report. And then also, there are some additional links here for sub-assessments and hub verification. So if you're having trouble with making those corrections, just please review this article, as well as documenting the housing moving date. So if you're having trouble getting all of your clients counted in utilization for your permanent supportive housing project, this might be a document that might assist with that, as well as relationships ahead of household. So we do understand that there may be a need for further training assistance for users that are new to the process or have forgotten how to report or how the report process operates. So we are offering assistance through the help desk office hours at helpdesk@allchicago.org. So again, if you do want to reach out for assistance and not set up a call, but just reaching out to the help desk, the sooner you reach out to us with your data quality concerns, the quicker it is for us to help you or get it resolved prior to the end of data quality. If you're reaching out the last day or two right before the submission date, it kind of makes it a little bit harder for us to set time to meet with you, as well as to work on the concerns that you have. So when requesting assistance, all sessions are limited to 30 minutes. This is outside of the typical email exchange time, but sessions will be done online via Microsoft Teams. So please ensure that you have that available on your computer prior to the call. ATAs, as well as anyone with business objects access, must be on the call when you're requesting assistance. That way, if you need to run a report as we're on the call, someone on that call is available to do that. And then please have your report available at the time of the call, or email the report you plan to reference beforehand. This is really important because it gives us a chance to make sure, or gives us a chance to review what the issue is prior to meeting with you. So it just saves time for us to figure out what's going on. So we are exactly at time, but I am going to allow a lot more time for questions if anyone has them. So please feel free to ask away in the question section, and we can stay a little longer just to answer those.
So Alex, hi everyone, this is Mike Corcoran with the HMIS team. I just want to, since there were a lot of questions and comments regarding the race question and ethnicity question, just to reinforce that it is a fact that those are no longer available to update, but the right place to update if you have missing data is in the new race and ethnicity column, in that new question. So the goal is to have the data entered for the client, right? So let's utilize the new question to do any updates and corrections. And we may ask you if you have a substantial number of those to let us know, and we'll figure out how to incorporate that into the results since they're not included in these reports. And we'll update the slides to reflect that also. But again, the fact that the race and ethnicity questions are no longer available means that those corrections should be made in the new race and ethnicity question.
Thanks, Mike, for that clarification. So again, we'll just save some time for any additional questions that come in. Okay, it looks like no questions are coming in, so I'd just like to thank everyone for joining us this morning for the data quality webinar. If you have any questions after the fact, please feel free to reach out to helpdesk@allchicago.org with any of those questions. Again, thank you, and we are going to end the webinar now.